Wha-pow! Wizard of Oz. I know a lot of you guys probably already know this thing front to back, but I'm here to dive into the book version today to do a little bit of a nuance that you might not have captured from the big screen or the big stage. Also going to tackle some of the quirky details and maybe some of the building blocks that led to what became The Wizard of Oz, the motion picture, and even Wicked. See, L. Frank Baum, he wanted American children to have their own mythology, not beholden to what maybe the Grimm's fairy tale world was all about. And so he took his own bedtime stories for his own kids and turned that into what became The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And fun fact, Oz actually came from his filing cabinets. They were separated by the letters A to N and O to Z. And thankfully, he chose Oz instead of Anne. We all know how this thing starts. Dorothy, Aunt Em, Uncle Henry, Toto, they're living on this gray, boring farm in Kansas. But in the book, there is no creepy Mrs. Gulch. There's no traveling peddler, and there's no goofy farmhands that are then kind of reincarnated into her dreamlike state and become her traveling companions. It's just her and her fam on the farm. The cyclone hits, the house takes off, and away we go to Oz. Of course, we land in Munchkinland. The house crushes the Wicked Witch, and she's wearing these slippers. But in the book, they're silver slippers. I think when you look back at the movie and they paid all this money for Technicolor, they switched it to ruby red slippers because nothing pops quite like ruby red. And Dorothy, she also meets a good witch, although it's not Glinda. There's no pink bubble and pink gown and floating dramatically into town. It's just this kind of scatterbrained old lady who happens to be a witch, and when Dorothy asks her for help, she wants to go home. The witch is like, I've never heard of Kansas, so maybe follow this yellow brick road and take it to the end, and this man, the Wizard of Oz himself, he might be able to help you. Along the way, she meets her brainless scarecrow and her heartless Tin Man, Wood Tin Man in the book, and the cowardly lion, and decides to tell them all that, hey, look, I'm looking for a way to go home. Maybe this wizard, he can help you too. Their first obstacle is this New Jersey-sized pothole filled with Kaleidos. They're this half tiger, half bear monster creature. And I think that's where maybe the lions and tigers and bears, oh my, came from. Maybe just this mix of this Kaleida bear-tiger monster. They find a way to traverse the pothole and, hack down this bridge at the very end when the Kaleidos are coming for them, and they fall into the hole to their death. There is a lot of darkness to the story. There's not as many, baby bumpers and guardrails. From there, we get to the infamous poppies, this field of flowers that looks beautiful, but they're poison. And unlike the movie where the poison puts you to sleep, these put you under, 6 feet under. Dorothy, Toto, the lion all go down, but the rescuer here is actually the queen of the field mice. Turns out the tiniest rulers of Oz run the best rescue mission. Hundreds of little mice show up and haul them out of there, led by the queen. Nicely done, a masterful rescue mission. And after a speedy recovery, they finally make it to the gates of Oz. Or as I like to call it, Nick Studios' Slime Factory Ground Zero. See, Oz isn't exactly looking like the Emerald City, but the gatekeeper, he slaps on these goggles and locks them, literally locks them, and tells them that they need to keep them on because the city is just so brilliant and bright that it'll hurt their eyes if they do otherwise. As a reader, it's very clear this is one big manufactured illusion, and it's looking like the OG Instagram filter. Finally, they get to meet the Wizard of Oz himself. Except unlike the movie, they go in one at a time, and Oz takes a deep look at each of their individual traumas and goes, I'm gonna lean into that. Dorothy sees a giant glowing head. The Scarecrow sees this beautiful woman. The Tin Man gets a terrifying beast. And the lion, a literal ball of fire. And as you suspected, he promises them they'll all get what they want, a way home, a brain, a heart, the courage, as long as they take out the Wicked Witch of the West. They set off on their mission through Winkyland. Yes, Winky. You think the word is funny, but these things are deadly. The Wicked Witch spots them early using her own personal Eye of Sauron, and she just starts to send out wave of attack after wave of attack. First a pack of wolves, then a murder of crows, then a swarm of bees, then the Winkies themselves. But Dorothy's crew, they outmaneuver everything. The witch has a trump card, her secret weapon, the golden cap. With it, she summons her ultimate enforcers, the winged monkeys. These things terrified me as a kid, kind of still do. They swoop in, tear the gang apart, and pick up Dorothy like a DoorDash order and drops her straight at the Queen's castle door. Now the witch, she sees her sister's sneakers and she's drooling over them like a bunch of sneakerheads at the next Nike drop. See, she's playing the long game. She's gonna turn Dorothy into her own personal Cinderella to do all the chores in the world until finally she takes her shoes off. And no, it's not because she has a thing for feet, but hey, to each their own. And one day, Dorothy accidentally splashes some water on her, and it hurts like bad. The witch freaks out, and she starts taunting her and demanding she take off the slippers. And Dorothy's like, you know what? Take the whole, splash you the whole way through. And boom, down she goes, melts into nothing. Dorothy's free, but also the Winkies are free. It turns out Dorothy just accidentally overthrew an evil dictatorship. On the way out, Dorothy spots something shiny, the golden cap, and goes, I'm gonna nab that for myself. And the Winkies, in gratitude, spill the tea. Whoever wears the cap can summon the winged monkeys 3 times. See, they aren't villains, it's just a classic case of jungle creatures bound by a magic hat. Turns out the monkeys were pranksters once upon a time, and they ran into a powerful princess who didn't have that kind of sense of humor for throwing poo. So Dorothy says the magic words, basically summons the weirdest Uber in Oz, and scoops her friends up with the monkeys, takes them to the doorstep of Oz in a flash. Dorothy drops the melted bucket of witch goo at Oz's feet and basically says, payment delivered, take me home. But she does have winged monkeys to do the job too. We may have some plot holes. But while she's demanding her one-way ticket home, Toto does what Toto does best. He causes chaos. He runs behind the curtain and yanks it down and reveals this old man pulling levers with a microphone. Oz the Great and Terrible. And while Oz may be a great fraud, his placebo game is strong. He stuffs a bunch of extra straw and stuff into the Scarecrow's head. Boom, you're smarter. He sews up this little heart for the Tin Man. Boom, you've got a heart. You've got compassion. You've got feeling. He goes over to the Lion and he gives him a shot of mysterious liquid, alcohol. Boom, you got courage. The wizard swears he can take Dorothy home on his fixed hot air balloon because nothing ever goes wrong with those, and surprise, it launches without her. Now it's time for plan B. Head south. And not for Winter, but for Glinda, the first adult in this novel who hopefully knows what she's talking about. And on the way to meet the good witch that we all know and love so much, things get weird. We're talking full-on fever dream. First, they get into some fight with animated trees that try to throw hands. Then they stumble into a city made of china. No, not the country, the actual dishware. The houses, the people, the cows, they're all porcelain. It's like your grandma's fancy cabinet suddenly came to life and developed anxiety. And then if that's not enough, an 8-legged elephant appears, looking like a spider, and the lion fights it off like it's been the boss fight he's been leading up to his whole life. And the weird beings don't stop there, but for the first time in this channel's history, I'm not going to bore you with the details and rambling. Eventually, they make it to Glinda. Dorothy hands over the magic cap, and Glinda sets all the monkeys free forever. And then she's like, you could have gone home this whole time. Just click those silver-toed shoes 3 times and wish yourself back to Kansas. 3 licks to the center of a Tootsie Pop and 3 clicks to the middle of nowhere. Same energy. I love the subtle but building way that it shows everybody had what they wanted and desired within themselves the whole time. You got the Scarecrow, he wanted brains, but he very much was able to masterfully dodge, dip, and dive through these situations that were thrown throughout the book. He was definitely the big thinker. And in fact, he ends up becoming the king of Oz after the wizard leaves. You've also got, the lion, who was cowardly, but multiple times throughout the book, he showed up and puffed out his chest and did what needed to be done. Totally brave throughout, but suddenly needed to realize it along the way. And then, actually what I didn't get too much into, but is quite frankly true, is the Tin Man, the Woodman. He really had a ton of compassion. He felt great guilt when he saw the horrors that they experienced throughout their travels. Creatures getting hurt or being persecuted across the way. He really felt for them, so he had a heart all along. And then Dorothy, of course, she could have tapped her heels a bunch of times and gone home. If she really wanted enough, she could have got there. This thing has a lot going for it. Building, your own brand of American folklore is no easy task, and frankly, L. Frank knocked it out of the park. This is a staple to my childhood and many children across the United States and maybe even the world. I think it could be argued that this might be one of the major building blocks that launched modern fantasy into what it is today. And I say that because if you look at old school fairy tales, they're very linear. You know, you got your one character, your one message. Some are a little more, detailed than that. But for the most part, that's what you're looking at. Here you have a multitude of characters coming from different backgrounds. You have a little bit of world building. I mean, there's 4 quadrants, right? The north, the south, the east, the west. Some are good, some are bad. Tons of citizens of the world coming together in the center at the city of Oz, which is ruled by this kind of miscreant but misleading character. I mean, there is definitely world building going on here. And the vast number and variety of creatures I think is awesome because it definitely mirrors the American melting pot. Where it struggles a bit, I think, is that 80% of this book is building to this culminating point and then it ends very abruptly. My other critique is that Dorothy is kind of just along for the ride. She's not really the leading role or heroine here. She's just experiencing it and watching her comrades kind of take her through this struggle and experience. It's something that the movie tweaked for sure. I mean, you think of the water melting the witch. In the book, it's an accident. She just accidentally takes down this monstrous villain. But in the movie, it's very planned out. They know the weakness and she makes it happen. It's funny that, an accident and anger is what solved this thing. But overall, I really enjoyed the book. But that's not the case for everybody. Here we have Jody, and Jody thinks that everyone is a merciless killer and psychopath. That's a long stretch. Did we read the same book? Delphine says did not finish because of animal death. What about Bambi? What about Dumbo? What about the Chronicles of Narnia? Maybe she's just not accustomed to children's literature. Sarah says flying monkeys, need I say more? I really like the flying monkeys in this version. I don't know. Are you saying you hate flying monkeys? Do you like them? Is that the reason you gave it a star or the reason you didn't give it 4 more? This is why you all need to get on my book ranking system, because if this was out of 10, it'd make a lot more sense. Speaking of, I give The Wonderful Wizard of Oz a 5.53. I mean, solid. Again, we're above the average line. I think if you're going to read it to kids, it is long, so it's not something you could get through into a night. It's like 200 plus pages, but it is creative. If you're really into the movie and you want to get a little more lore, I say why not give it a read. Compare and contrast the differences to both this and maybe to Wicked. There are like over a dozen other books. I don't know if I would say my interest was piqued enough to dive into any of those, maybe one day, or if maybe my future kids like this enough that they want to hear more, I'd be all about it. But yeah, 5.53, that's not bad at all. As usual, if you've read this, let me know what your rating is. How'd you feel? Love it, hate it, share your comments. And if you enjoyed this review, drop a like, subscribe. I'd love to see you soon. And yeah, here's what we got coming. These 2 coming your way soon. And remember, folks, a chapter a day keeps the brain rot away. Wizard of Oz. See you soon.